What's up, guys? Jogger here. Like the new camera setup. Figured out I could switch it to 1920 1080. Well, besides that, let's get into it. So, my final thoughts on Endwalker. So I'm gonna go into this. This is non-spoilers for the first part. I'll clearly tell you where the spoilers began. Well, probably using hand signals, or maybe I'll just say it. So, you know how I started saying this is pretty basic expansion, not that good story-wise, stuff like that. And that's what I'm gonna go in this video about, talking about the stories. The dungeons and trials, I'll talk about that in another video because I'll probably take too long just talking about the story. So I think this is the best expansion, and it's not even close. Now I want to preface that by saying I think the best villain was Emmett Selk, but this is not spoiler, so I can't really go that much farther on the subject. It's the best expansion. Let's talk about the music's a banger. The story just completely 180'd in like a great direction. And clearly there was a reason why they they formatted the story the way they did. Getting out the obvious and then setting you on a completely different path. And I think I'll go from there. But like I said earlier, this is the best expansion. If I had to rank them, it would probably be Endwalker, Shadowbringers, Heaven's Sword, Stormblood, and then AAR, A Realm Reborn. Um, yeah, so that's the non spoilers. Now I'm gonna get into the spoilers. Spoiler time. You have your time to get out. It's spoiler time. Okay. So Rod's on hand after that 85. The world's on fire. Everybody's turning into these monsters because of the final days and stuff like that. And you're like, what's going on? And then eventually you figure out, okay, it's despair. People's despair and hopelessness that turns them into these monsters. These monsters aren't just coming out of someplace; it's people turning into them. Um, and this is probably like one of the lower points in the game where you're losing hope because the final days are happening, and you see it in Radzahan, and you're seeing it in the people. They're losing hope, but Vitra's there, and he finally reveals himself to be the satrap, and it inspires a lot of people. And it's a cool moment when you see Vitra reveal himself. And then Fortunant and Shalian come in. They're like, "Yo, you guys want to get out of here?" Um, but before you do that, you're on a mission to research this Akash. The thing that was the flower was glowing. It's like that energy around feelings and stuff like that. So you're going out to search for this thing called Elpis that Heidelin talked about way earlier in the game. Um, and yeah, so the only person who knows about this is apparently Elidibus, who's still alive in the Crystarium. So I thought it was nice that you got to go back to the first, and you got to talk with Reen, Lena, and a bunch of other characters there. And I thought it was really cool. Goes back into this theme of everyone's back, kind of like Smash. I'll get into that later, but yeah. So you go to Elpis, and it's the past, and Elidibus is like, don't you can't interact with anyone. Don't touch anything. It's not gonna matter anyway. And it turns out well, he was right, but in a roundabout way. So Elpis, how can I describe Elpis? I think it's like Disney World. This area felt so much like Kingdom Hearts. It was like so crazy how it felt, and yet yes, I meant Disney World. Disney World is the better one, so just know that Disney World's the better one. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it felt like a literal Kingdom Hearts world. I mean, what happens is like you're trying to go out some door, and then these two people come through a teleporter in the center of the room, and you turn back, and dude, I think everyone freaked out when they were seeing this. When I heard who was talking, I was like, bro. And like I said, spoilers. It was, you turn around and you see Emmett Selk and Hitler Deus, and I'm like, holy shit, dude, they didn't do this. Like, you're gonna get to go run around with Emmett Selk and Hitler Deus, and maybe even see Heidelin. So with the spirit vision, because he has 2020 vision, he's able to see you, and so is Hitler Deus. And they like basically turn you into a physical, tangible form, and yeah, you get to run around Elpis, which is like this research facility that those people, the ancients, had. Um, so you're running around with them. You're getting to talk with Emmett Selk and Hythlodaeus, and it's so cool. And basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find this guy named Hermes who took up the seat of Fandaniel, and you're trying to find out because he was the expert what happened and stuff like that. And you meet him and you meet his creation named Medion, and clearly because they named her and clearly because they introduced her, you can tell she was going to be a big part, and she was going to be a big part. And so, but basically, what happens is everything goes to shit, and you meet Venat though, and when you meet Venat, you tell her and Emmett Selk and Hythlodaeus basically what happened. And Emmett Selk and Hythlodaeus leave because they just don't believe you, but Venat does believe you, and it's up to you to go find Hermes, who went somewhere else for some reason, and just track him down because like it was kind of interesting. It's like when you meet Hermes, he didn't seem like a guy who was really wanting the end of the world and stuff like that. Like Emmett Selk says that multiple times too. Um, but then it gets to a point where it's like clearly Medion was the cause. She's like made a pure dynamist and stuff like that. So her feelings, this is what causes the final days somehow. And Hermes is like he's supposed to be a pretty pragmatic, logical guy. What happened was he wanted her, and she had like other forms and stuff like that because she's supposed to be like a familiar to answer the question, "What is the meaning of life?" And remember I myself thinking like that's a flawed perspective because it's like, what happens if there's no one there? What happens if the answer is like not good? Like, what is this being who doesn't have really context with stuff like that? It's like a baby gonna do. She's gonna realize, well, there's no meaning to life then, and it death is the answer. And it's interesting because how they also preface this is death is also an important thing in that ancient culture. So if you step down from the convocation of 14, you're supposed to basically die. I mean, like, well, not in quotes, but you literally die. You just return to the earth as ether, and it's supposed to be like a cycle that is actually good. And that's why Emmett Selk and Hythlodaeus even went there. So current Van Daniel was gonna leave and die, and it just didn't square with Hermes this cycle because if you're so knowledgeable, if you're so good, why would you die? Why would you end your life? Um, and I found that to be a fascinating question. I mean, I think it's something everybody ponders and thinks about, but to me, I think it's like life. A life is a beginning and an end, and there needs to be an end. They will eventually be an end, and it's just that's what makes life, and life is the journey you have. It's also talked about later in the game too. It's like there's lots of ups and downs. Those ups and downs, that sorrow, that despair you feel, you find people along the way that don't make it sorrow anymore, that don't make it despair. They make it, you find happiness, you find joy. That's what life is. It's a journey that's a beginning and an end. And if you just skip it all and go to the end, then that's not a life. That's just, then what is even the point? Um, so that's what happens is Medion just like turns insane after she gets this report from all her other friends who went out the world and found apparently dead civilizations. She goes insane and was like, I need to kill everyone. And Hermes is like, okay, I'm gonna protect you. And basically what he does is he allows Medion to escape to the edge of the universe and then has a mind wipe device like Men in Black. And Emmett Silk and Hythlodaeus lose their memory. Vernat and you, the character, don't, because you escape. Um, yeah, I thought it was interesting. And so what Elizabeth said was true. It didn't matter in the end. Nothing changed because Emmett Silk and Hythlodaeus both lost their memory, and nobody probably would believe Vernat. And that's why Vernat became Heidelin, so that she could fight for a future and like allow people to survive. That was the entire point of her probably sundering Zodiark and splitting him into 14 so he couldn't die because he was the big part of why this world was living. and then also created the lore parts so there could be an escape hatch just in case he dies. But also, what happened is because she sundered everyone, it made everyone more susceptible to the transformation. So it was like a double whammy. And after that, you go back to Garlemald to reunite your friends. You know, they're getting fucked because they can't do anything but without you. And it's honestly like a cool moment because you play as Alfred and Alice, and you're like basically proving to your father, who's also there trying to get refugees at Ratzat Han to Sharlayan, and it was a cool moment. And also Euless, he calls it Xenos, and Xenos is just an edge lord and says whatever. Um, and then you go back to Sharlayan, and I think this is another big moment where it's like Urianger finally reunites with Moonbreeder's parents, and they don't blame him, and it's like a big heartfelt moment because the Laura opponents, they were also having some down feelings and stuff like that, and then it's like both them and Urianger, they both get this like big moment in Charlian second time around where like they're actually being those bunnies are being useful to other people and they're finding another purpose than just being like these pilots of this ship to save people. It's like, no, you can stay and fight and you can help these people. And I thought it was a cool moment. And I mean, also I think what was great is like this story's kind of dark and they added the comedy and stuff like that. So Sickert and Emmanuel, and they're like the comic relief that always banter back and forth. I thought that was really cool, and I'm not really cool, really funny. And it was kind of also what was funny is like the signs, they needed a bunch of like materials and stuff, so it's like everybody you met and their mother, they all come and bring you this, and then everybody's like, wait, how do we pay for this? Because apparently everything isn't free. um and Alphinaud and his mom just comes out and they're like, and she's like, yeah, I just funded all this. And then Fulchinon's like, I'm bankrupt, bro. I'm bankrupt, bro. And I thought that was fun. The entire everyone's back sequence was so funny. It's like you see the Sky Pirates and Cat Sith. You see Alpha and Omega and Sid and Nero. You see the Ivalice ship. You see like like they mentioned like Shirayu and not Sirayu and Hell's Career bird thing. Um, Talking about tons and like that. I thought that was cool. Just a callback to everyone you met and stuff like that. That was just a really cool moment. And then it's like it's time. It's like, okay, we got to go after the big bad. She's off somewhere. So all these materials were gathered so they could fire their rocket ship, which they called Ragnarok. They had to give it a badass name. Um, and then you're off. You're off to the final area, which is called Ultima Thule. And it's just a pretty desolate, bare bones area. Literally, the point is supposed to be like a dead star type environment. And you see these old civilizations, like these shades of them. And it's just good background in telling and like why these civilizations failed, what happened. You find out the dragons were a civilization and they were getting like invaded and eradicated by these like machines. And basically what happens is Midgard Stormer or someone or one of the dragons like carried off and they found Earth or Theris, and that's how the dragons continue. So the dragons are aliens. Omega is also Omega's race was actually the machines that invaded them, or I think. Um and yeah, but they were another civilization, so Omega's also like an alien thing. And then there's another race that was like this was like this weird death cult blob type things. It was like all they cared about was like dying basically. Um yeah, and then the level 90 dungeon also showed more civilizations. I thought honestly that entire storytelling environment was just really cool in general. Um yeah, and then oh yeah, so about the trial, the last trial, just tank LB3, otherwise you're gonna die. Uh but yeah, that was Ultima Thule. I really liked it. They also did this thing where it's like again, spoilers, pretty obvious that like everyone disappears around you. Like Thancred, Orianger, Ishtola, Alice. I mean everyone. They just all disappear around you in order to progress through the place, and then it's like, oh, they all come back. It's like, okay, yeah, I saw that coming from like a mile away. They brought him back with Azim's crystal. They even brought back Emmett Silk and Hythlodaeus again, and they were actually like alive, and they were both like, no, let's just peace out. So I mean, it was cool to see them when they confronted Medion for the final time. In the end, you just feel bad for Medion because she was like this innocent creature who didn't really understand that much in complexities, and um, she only did what her master Hermes wanted, and she didn't want to hurt him, and that's what happened. So she wanted to save people. What she thought was doing was saving people, granting them oblivion. I mean, I guess, yeah, really interesting, very interesting story. Really thought provoking too. Going off this theme of hope, and that's really what you see in the ending of it in that final cutscene with you and Medion. And I don't really cry to video games. I think the closest I came was the end of Final Fantasy X. That game's 20 years old, so this is fair play, but I guess spoilers for Final Fantasy X. So at the end when Yuna and Tidus are both like there and like they go to hug each other and Tidus like vanishes because he was like an after image, a spirit of the past and stuff like that. I almost cried during that because it was like that game was so good. Um, I didn't I didn't almost cry the first time I watched that cutscene with Medion and you at the end, but I almost did the second time watching it. And yeah, so it's a really really good story, I think. You look at the what they did is they got the obvious stuff out of the way, and I actually like what they did. Unlike movie trailers where they spoil the entire movie, they spoiled this certain section and made you think that was the entirety. I mean, I think a lot of people thought Zodiac was going to be the last guy. The moon was going to be the last thing. But as you play the game, you're like, wait, why can't I go all through Charlian? Why can't I go all through Radzat Han? Why am I already on the moon, but I'm not done with those areas? And you realize this is the middle, and you're not even at the second half. You're not even fully aware of the magnitude of this story. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a great way to do it, to not spoil the story, not spoil the moment, because it was really worth it and really good. And honestly, also what happened at the end, you fight Xenos. I think that was another obvious thing that I thought was going to be in the patch quest. Now it's like, what is going to happen? And what happened is the Scions disbanded. Um, I don't know where I've seen this before, but there was something similar to this where it's like, um, I mean, it's another thing they kind of copy. Trails of Cold Steel did the whole Avengers thing where you like everyone's back type thing. So in video games, that Trails of Cold Steel did this everyone's back type thing first. But in movies, it was Avengers. Actually, I think Trails of Cold Steel came out in 2019. I think it came out before Endgame in Japan, so it might have been even before Avengers. But yeah, I mean that's a moot point. But yeah, so Xenos is gone. Scions are disbanded. It's like, what are you gonna do during the patch quests? There's a good bit of story that is told in all these patch quests. The point 1 through point 3 usually wraps up the expansion story, and point 4 through the end usually that extends what that ramps up to the next expansion. So I'm just really curious what they're gonna do. I don't think it's gonna be a new like game, Final Fantasy 17 or whatever. I'm pretty sure they've already said they're gonna keep continuing with Final Fantasy 14. Um, Now what I kind of want them to make like a new version where it's PS5 and PC, so the game doesn't look as good. I mean, so the game looks better because like some parts just don't look as high quality as other games. Like I played Lost Ark, and Lost Ark looks 100 times better than that game. It's because it was built when the PS3 was out, so it's still like some of the armor kind of looks like weird and stuff like that. So that's kind of just my wish for like a new version of it. But I'm fine with them continuing on 14, maybe just like re-release it or something like that. But yeah, I mean, great story. I mean, just great expansion. Um, yeah, I don't think there's much to say after that. Leave a like leave a like, subscribe. It helps me out. Leave a comment. What was your favorite part in the game? Have you ever cried because of a video game? Did you cry at any point? There are plenty of moments, probably, to potentially cry. Did you freak out at any point? I did. I freaked out plenty of times. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later. Bye.